because as I was learning these games, as I was playing, and my dad worked at Apple, I actually kind of had like a job. Like my parents were both startup people. My mom was in the fashion industry and made like clothes with folks like Valentino, and would make companies in Seattle, and they'd sell them to Levi's. So like when I was a kid, we had an apartment in San Francisco and one in Seattle, and I was kind of like this traveling kid. And they would put me up on stage, and they would have me show what's possible to do on a computer. And this is how my dad basically got every school in Washington State and British Columbia on Macs. And that was because they were like, oh, like, let's show people what's possible. And so that ended up getting me to a spot where here's me being a delegate to the United Nations, because I learned these things. I now had the skills that I could be on the forefront. I could be a pioneer in AI. This was like 2018, 2019. This is me and Ahmad, who's now a big VC in Dubai, actually building this first data platform. And again, this is what we were doing in life. Everything in human history has been growing, but incrementally. And something big has changed, because before it was only humans making the change happen. And now the reality, this comes from Wait But Why, which is one of my favorite blogs. But we have an inflection point, right? Like, can you feel everything changing right now in your life? Can you feel the systems around you, the political systems, the banking systems, the money systems, probably the work that you're at start to be like a little less certain, a little less like a little more accelerated? That's because that's where we're at. And this graphic was true when it was created in I think it was like 2018, 2019. The reality is that you were there. We're actually here now. We're at the beginning of this exponential lift. And I think a lot of folks are probably drawn to us here because it's like, hey, I can feel this change taking place. I can see people who are changing their lives with this crypto project or that AI project. And I want to figure out, like, how do I learn these things? How do I get connected to these people? How do I become one of those folks? And this exponential change, you can actually just graph it straight up by comparing how these AI models have grown over the last couple of years. And so for those of us that don't read graphs very often, there's a couple lines here. This first line is showing the y-axis, and it's showing the capabilities. This line is a human PhD using Google outside of their specialty, right? So if you give a person Google and you have them write something up, what they're saying essentially is in 2013 through 2014, or 2023 through 2024, we saw a lot of these models kind of at the level of a human PhD using Google outside of their specialty. And then just coming into this year, which we're only 7 months into, we saw human PhDs, we saw it comparable to human PhDs in their own field. Right today, GPT-5 comes out. Open source versions like DeepSeek 2 and OpenAI's open operating system. These things are actually continuing to increase, and this is not going to stop or slow down. Which brings us to a control point. What is the control point in our own life right now? It's really only what we can hold keys to. You can't guarantee what your government's going to do right now. You can't guarantee what your bank's going to do or your employer's going to do. You're in charge of you, and your Think Agent gives you the ERC20 equivalent for agents. So if ERC20 was how the Ethereum blockchain allowed anybody to launch a fungible token, and it allowed for the permissionless innovation of things like Uniswap or Hyperliquid to be made, because we have interoperability in place now. And so in the same way that crypto gives us a control point, it actually gives us a ground to build on. That's what Think Agents are doing. And they're going to help us go through this transition. And so what we know is happening right now is that every app is becoming an agent. And that term agent, you're going to hear it used in all kinds of ways, because, some people are using it just for marketing. Some people are using it to sell something. But essentially an agent is a smart application. The agent, the applications now aren't just linear. They can actually grow and learn and adapt to you. So every app becomes an agent. So if you open up your phone, every single app on your phone is going to become an agent. It is unlikely that they're going to be funded in the same way, paid for in the same way, these sorts of things. And And so right now you have a big decision to make. Are we going to build our lives on the app store in which we rent from people like OpenAI and Google and Claude that each have their own worldview, their own ethics? And they don't really ask you for yours, right? Like you show up and you're living in someone else's house. Or you can own your intelligence, which means we're going to start using our agents as our control point. And as a group, we are building in a way that these agents are composable. And so these agents need standards and great products to work. And so the first thing to think about here with a think agent is this is mapping exactly what happens to the internet itself. So if you remember back to the days of America Online, only the people that America Online approved could get a keyword. So I was like, I remember there was always like AOL keyword Oprah, right? And so Oprah got her keyword, got her space, but you couldn't just set up a business and start doing business on AOL. That all changed with Netscape. Netscape was Mark Andreessen coming and saying, hey, we're going to make it so that anybody who has a .com can now set up a website. You don't have to ask for permission. Everything's accessible through that URL, and you're good to go. And so in that same way today, agents have evolved without standards. So the ecosystem's fragmented. As you can see, each one of these agents is different from each other. They don't speak the same language. They're hard to connect. You have to manage API keys. There's just a whole bunch of different things that you have to do that are challenging. We call this the interoperability gap. What these agents actually need is a common control point and a common way of speaking with one another. And that's called the Think Agent Standard. So the Think Agent Standard takes what are called agents and gives them a common interface so that anybody that's building a product can make that product available to all agents. And so this allows them to communicate, transact, organize, and trade skills. And we actually set up a group of people that agree with this. And I think there's at least 60 companies in this. And I cannot wait for this browser to be released, because literally what we're going to be doing is working with each one of them to have their services be included in this browser, which I'm going to show you the browser here in just a couple minutes. But I want you to know that everything that we're building follows these 6 components at a protocol level. So it needs to be open source. And the reason for that is anybody needs to be able to add, remove, like for you to own your agent actually means you need to know the code that's underneath of it. It's composable, which means that you can connect pieces together, right? So if you have one agent that's really good at seeing and identifying objects, you could have another agent that's really good at manipulating a robot arm. And that's how broad agents can be. It's protocol governed, meaning that we're quickly moving to decentralized, like not governance meaning like DAOs, but governance meaning the code is law, meaning that emissions happen through this, that trust happens through this, and that there aren't people that can get in like that Mike doesn't have keys to get in and like take your agent, right? They're interoperable, meaning because we've set up the common control point, now that agent can communicate anywhere. They're permissionless, meaning we don't have to be the ones to approve you and what you're doing. You can do it on your own, and they're decentralized. And that's the Think Agent Standard. And essentially what it does is behind the scenes, it allows for an agent to be composed of 3 different parts. And it allows them to be able to talk with each other and transact. And when you think about like how I interact with you, I basically can do 2 things. I can, because I can't, like, we're not in the same physical spot. I can't physically do anything, but I can talk to you, I can communicate, and I can transact, right? I could send you a token. I could send you an encrypted message. I can do these sorts of things. This is what we're allowing the agents to do, is everything you and I can do, these agents can now do between each other. And this is set up so that we have a Think builder in a browser that run on top of a Think protocol. And then there's this whole ecosystem of apps that you see in the Independent AI Institute, but that you also see being incubated through the incubator. And so now we get to talk about ThinkOS and take a look at it. Are you guys ready to take a look at it? Hell yeah. Any questions before we go to take a look at it?
Mike, will you say why we're starting with the browser? Because we spent a lot of time building out the agent builder, and we're like, well, the browser has to come first. Will you explain kind of the logic of that?
Yeah. So you need a user interface. So if there's a mind, body, and soul for every agent, the body is the thing you interact with, right? So the browser in this case is the body. It's the user interface that allows you and your agent to communicate, but it also allows you and your agent to use tools together. So let me show you. All right, so here we're pulling up ThinkOS. ThinkOS ends up being you end up being able to have access to your agent inside your browser. So when I talk about a body, I mean, I can interact with my agent right here. So interacting with this agent, I can ask questions. It has access to this browser, so it can actually go look at websites, and you can actually see it navigating. And so that agent's available in your browser. Some of the things that are beautiful about this and why you want to do that is so now your agent can have access to tools. So this is my agent's wallet. It's got some Venice tokens in here, which allows it to be able to use Venice for free every day. Here's the Coinbase wallet that I've got set up. You can have these different tools, but you can also load into it like the agent builder, right? And so by having this agent builder over here, I can come in and I can build this research agent, for example, and I can actually have this agent run. And this agent built this whole, I asked it to do a research report on decentralized versus centralized AI. And this agent ran 100% on my own machine. So let's see, terminal. Okay, so like literally Llama's running back here, and you've got DeepSeek, which is a model, and you've got Llama 3 running. And these agents are utilizing Llama 3 and DeepSeek locally. And they're going and they're actually having almost like a study group. So you can come in and you can watch these agents talk to each other back and forth, right? So we have like 5 loops where the agent comes in, agent 0 comes in, has a conversation, and we can actually look at what got said between these agents, and we can start really understanding our agent at a base level, and we can create workflows for these agents. For a lot of people that this is geeky stuff, but for the builders, this gives you a way to on-ramp and understand how agents work. And so, but then the cool thing is because this is giving us the code automatically, the thing that we're shipping right now and is the last piece that's coming in is this agent now can be addressed right here through the interface and talks to. Does that answer your question, Jesse?
Cool.
Any other questions from folks on this part of the browser and why it makes sense to use a standard browser that anybody can use?
And why it's private. Like that's
yeah,
I'm always going to keep talking about is like why it's private.
Is the browser going to be integrated into Souls?
So yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So Souls would be built on top of this. Right. So when you look at what we've been talking about with Souls, like this is the open source repo, which we're referring to as ThinkOS right now, because we need to make that kind of like infrastructure layer before we productize it, because we want this thing to be more flexible than you would be able to if you launch Souls right away. Does that make sense?
So Tiki, what we're talking about doing is like also building native agents in like at a code level into the browser that would solve most people's problems. Like, did you see the one that David added last week where it's a Japanese translator? Right. So that's just now built into the browser. So if you want to translate Japanese, there's already an agent built into that for it. So we're going to have kind of these like high level agents kind of built into the browser that solve like most people's problems. Now, somebody like you that's more technical, if you're like, hey, I want to build an agent that's more specific, it's like, cool, download Souls and everything you build in Souls will automatically connect into this. That way we're not making, if like, let's say 90% of the people that download this browser don't ever need to build like a crazy high-end agent. Cool, they can just use the browser privately on their desktop and that's it, right? But if you want to get more technical, like you and CoinMaker and guys like that, no credits, then you open up Souls and then it natively just pulls it right into the browser. Whereas like where we had started was almost like, hey, we're going to build the tool to build these like high-end agents. And we found that like, that's only going to serve like 5% of the population. But if we can first give them the browser, they can run privately, obviously, privately and safely and all that kind of stuff on their desktop. Now, if people want kind of almost like the pro version, right? Then you can pull in Souls. We were building in the wrong order, I guess. if we want to get mass adoption.
And you can see here that like we've got two base agents. We've got a research agent, and then there's a shopping agent that we've got built in here. So you'll be able to see more. And as right, like as different groups start to build these workflows, these are going to become the agents that everybody has access to. So it creates this whole marketplace eventually of agents that are available.
And then there's going to be like bounties, right? So all of a sudden, Tiki, if you think of an agent we haven't thought of, it's like, hey, we need a whatever agent, we want it built into the browser. Whoever builds it, here's like a bounty on that, you know, because we're all building this together. So like, we're going to bring forward the agents that we're working on, but dude, like the agent you're working on is like, why not incorporate those in here? And then you can even charge from it, all that kind of stuff. But only like the really more technical people are probably ever opening up souls.
And then the cool thing is that because these agents, right, like you can be in a spot where you're building an agent, but every one of these partners generally have applications, right? So I made a really quick, it's funny that they didn't give Metaverse Micky pants here, but like in Altered State, now we have the ability to come in and actually like quickly create an agent that can go play in the other side. And here's him Naruto running or Thriller or whatever. But this is actually a 3D rigged full asset that you can literally come in here and publish and have ready to go play in the Readyverse. So now we're already at a spot where we've got agents putting on skin of their avatars and able to go play these games. You've got other page that's bringing these things in. And so here's kind of like a version 1 of this, but this we're working with them to be able to make this available so that you can actually have your agent pilot your 3D character over here on the side, and other pages working to bring kind of all these different communities we're working with into one place. You can actually have your agent now authorized using its wallet with Venice, and you can have access to Venice, and you can have access to kind of your API stack over here in Venice.
And like you guys, like what we're trying to do is build the least amount of stuff. So like, because of the platform the open source platform we're building this on top of, day one, you can plug in any of the plugins that are already in Chrome, right? So guess what? That means you've got MetaMask, you've got quite like all that stuff immediately. It also means that now you can go straight to Futureverse if you want and have your agent play there. You can go straight to all these things because it's through the browser. Like once we kind of figured out that the best delivery mechanism is through a browser, it started making sense because now you just go to any site you want and it's already agentic. Does that make sense? And by the way, this is all running locally and privately. No context.
Hey, Mikey, do you mind going over that example where you showed how the agents are talking to each other in the side panel again? I think that was an interesting visualization, but I was wondering if we could go through an example end to end just to see how that looks over time.
Yep, you got it. Okay, let me see. I think we can go like this. And so it created quite the report, right? Like when you actually look at it, it's like, I can't believe this got done locally on my machine. But now when you go out, when you want to say, how did it actually do this? You can come in and if you follow this, you can see that we've got a topic enhancer, which is basically an agent that looks at what the person said and makes sure that there was enough context. And then it's got agent 0 and agent 1. And these two agents are having a conversation. And you can actually come in here and you can say like, let's look at what they said. So it's using two different tools. It's using web scraping, and it's also using the Brave Search API. And so you can see that it used the Brave Search API and it searched the internet using it. So you are agent 0. Your goal is to explore any topic provided by the user in depth and talk to agent 1. So introduce the topic to agent 1, share your initial thoughts and any assumptions you have. It tells the agent how to use a tool, and then kind of gives a context of how to discuss and deepen. And so the architecture of this agent, just that conversation, right? Like it's kind of like if you brought two smart people together and gave them a task and said, I want you to look at this and have a discussion. So then I came in here and it took my user request, which was, can you debate decentralized AI and centralized AI? So then you watch and hear the agent actually be like, the user wants me to debate between these two things. I noticed they haven't defined what their position is or provided much context about what they're asking. Seems open-ended, which could make it challenging since debate requires arguments from both sides. So it actually took my conversation or my question and put context around it so that the other agents would have a better context window. Then it looks like it called the tool Brave Search, and it went and searched the internet to find articles. Those you can see now that it went to Reddit, to a conversation. It went to allaboutai.com, to decentralized AI pros and cons on Zero Cap. So it went and read all these different websites, pulled the context together, and then outputted the things that it saw in common across all of those. So the advantages of decentralized AI, like scalability, security, innovation, transparency, and then what the disadvantages would be. And that was the first, that happened in 48 seconds and took 7,000 tokens total. And you can actually go see each part of it as they go back and forth. Make sense?
Awesome. Thank you, Micky.
Yeah. I'm going to keep getting better at this every time. If you got anything where you're like, hey, this was a good part of this went on too long, this didn't make sense to me, I love feedback because I'm going to keep making this better and better. When we started, I started an incubator, a Web3 incubator, 2021, 2022. And we built a thing called Banyan DAO, which was about bringing people in and having Web 2 product managers learn to build together. And we ended up doing this thing where we had the welcome meeting. And then we brought people into working groups, and we ended up having 50 different companies go through an incubator. And of that, they kind of like, some people were like, oh, I actually am a builder, I want to join a team, or hey, I want to be the CEO. And 3 of those companies got funded and are still in existence today. And so this is kind of taking those lessons and taking it to the next level. And so we're going to keep making this better and better. If you have any feedback, I would love to hear it. And we're going right now from this into an Agent 101 class. So that tool that you just saw me use, Flowwise, Nick B or Alex B, who is much more experienced with me at the actual like agent building side of things, is going to be taking us through and showing how to use Flowwise. And in a few weeks, that class is all going to happen inside of the Think OS Builder browser. And so whoever's doing it this week will be doing it on Flowwise, and pretty soon we'll be doing it right there in the Think OS Builder browser. Thanks for coming to the first welcome class. And any last questions before folks are able to come over to the 101?
Dude, I just got some really good feedback from Caleb also about stuff, and just know that like we view feedback as a gift, right? So it's, we've been doing this long enough that we know that like everybody here has our best interest in mind, and hopefully, we have yours too. So if you see something we're doing, we're like, pretty much Caleb was like, hey man, I would love to see an update on the product every week instead of you guys talking about Von Doom and all those guys second. He's like, I'd love to know, like, what are you guys building, and then talk about and I was like, fantastic feedback. Appreciate that. From now on, we'll start with an update of a State of the Union, because he in essence wanted to see what Mike just showed. Right. You know what I'm saying? Which is totally understandable. And like, he gave that feedback. So just know that like, as you're seeing us build these things out, we don't take offense to anything. It takes a lot to hurt our feelings. As long as the thing is what's best for the community and best for the product, please just like hit us with it, because we only want to do better.